Hey everybody, welcome back. I've been getting hit up left and right for an update on cannabis and pot stocks now that they're positively exploding to the upside. So in this video, I wanted to go over what we can expect next and what the big catalysts are headed forward. First off, what we all know is about to happen is that the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency in the United States, is going to declassify marijuana from being a Schedule I narcotic to possibly a Schedule III narcotic. Why do I say only possibly? There is a slim possibility that it gets descheduled from Schedule I, where opioids are, down to Schedule II, where cocaine is. I don't think that's what's really going to happen. I think when it gets descheduled, it'll get descheduled down to Schedule III. When that happens, it means that all of the legalized states where we have operating cannabis businesses will be able to get bank accounts and credit cards. Currently, it's an all-cash business, so this would be a huge change for how the companies operate. Additionally, they'll be able to deduct on their taxes everything they spend for their business. Now, the Biden administration really wants declassification to happen, and since the DEA operates under the current administration, it's highly likely this is going to happen soon. In fact, if you've been watching the news, Vice President Harris has been browbeating the DEA, telling them that they need to declassify it even sooner. Now, the problem is I can't tell you when that's going to happen. This is the government we're talking about. So the word fast is not in their vocabulary. The declassification could happen in the next couple of days, weeks, months, but it might not even happen this year. That's how ridiculous this is. And this entire industry has been rug pulled so many times that a lot of investors are completely burned. Next up, speaking of investors, one of the big problems and one of the reasons we're seeing this huge spike in stocks lately is that it's mostly retail driven. So a lot of this is being manipulated by mom and pop shops who take advantage of the retail traders that get in. There are no institutions that are currently investing in the space because of its Schedule I status. So there's a lot of volatility. That means if you get in now, you need to be prepared for huge moves in either direction, and they'll happen all the time. In fact, if you look at Canopy Growth since the beginning of the year, it's up more than 100%. And this was a company that was more or less left for dead. The next big catalyst after the DEA classification would be federal legalization. But we have no way of knowing when this is going to happen. It's highly likely it won't happen in 2024, and it might not even happen this decade. Although experts in the space say that it should happen sooner rather than later. So how do you play the space? I had someone ask me if specific individual stocks were going to rally in the next couple of months, or if the rally that we've seen so far would continue. And I honestly can't tell you. In fact, I don't know a single expert that can tell you which way these stocks are going to go and for how long. Because of this, it's absolutely imperative for me to not use leverage. I do not use options or margin when it comes to investing in the cannabis sector. The reason for this is that if you use options, you have to be right about three different things: direction, distance, and time. And if you get any of those three variables wrong, you lose all the money you put at risk. If you buy shares of an individual company or an ETF, you only have to be right about one thing: direction. It has to go up. But it doesn't matter if it goes up next week or next year. You can hold on to those shares, and as long as they go up eventually, you're profitable. And that's especially how I choose to play the cannabis and pot stock sector. Now, I do hold some individual cannabis stocks in the space. Canopy Growth is my biggest position, and it's in the investments in play portfolio. But it's been beaten down since I've bought it in 2018. Over in the speculation in play portfolio, I have two more cannabis plays. I have Tilray Brands and Grow Generation, and both of those are incredibly down from their all-time highs. I stopped playing with the individual companies after Canopy Growth got completely destroyed. Back in 2018, Canopy Growth was thought to be the best in breed in the space, and then it went and sold off from over $500 all the way down to $3. That's how bad that company had become. I choose to play the space instead with two different ETFs: the Advisor Shares Cannabis ETF, which is MSOS, and the Amplify Cannabis ETF, which is CMBS. Now, someone on X gave me a hard time because both ETFs have the same 4 top holdings. However, that's not the reason I buy both of them. Each of them takes different approaches to the smaller companies in the space, and I think the smaller companies are where we're going to see the biggest bang for our buck. However, already in 2024, my strategy of buying both of them is paying out. CMBS is up more than 37%, which sounds great, except MSOS is up more than 47%, in fact, nearly 48%. By splitting the allocation between those two ETFs, I get exposure to those smaller companies, and each one of the managers of the two ETFs has different preferences for the smaller companies they're choosing to buy. Additionally, there's no promise that the four biggest names in the space will remain the four biggest names in the space. In fact, any of the four of them could go bankrupt. Now, I personally think that's unlikely, but I don't want that single company risk. I've already been beaten down by an individual company in Canopy Growth. I already lost a fortune. Now, I'm hoping that Canopy Growth will come back, but it needs to go up 4x from its current prices to be at my break-even price, my cost basis. That's how nuts it is. And that's why I don't want to play the individual companies. I don't want exposure to an individual company going bankrupt. So it's a very exciting space, and you can follow me on X for the more up-to-date information at GetErked, but I can't tell you right now what exactly is going to happen. Once the DEA declassifies marijuana, it's possible that we'll see institutional investment come into the space, and that would be a huge catalyst for the upside. But for me, the most important thing to remember is this is a long-term investment. I'm planning on holding these positions until I retire in more than 20 years, and I don't think short-term trading this is worth doing. Back in December of 2022, the Safe Banking Act was in the Senate once again, and I followed a lot of traders who were putting huge bets that it would pass, but they were using leverage and options. So when it didn't pass, they ended up losing all the money they put at risk, and they're no longer in the space. They got scared out. Danny Moses, who was one of the traders in the Big Short, the ones that bet against the mortgage crisis in 2008, is big in cannabis, and he calls it his big long. But he also reminds you that this has to be a long-term investment. We know that these catalysts are coming sometime down the road, but we don't know when. So you need to have a plan. You need to be in the space. You need to control your risk and risk money that you're only willing to lose entirely. But have a buying plan. Don't buy all in all at once. It's quite possible these positions could sell off 50% or more once again. They've done it over and over again. But I do have faith in this sector for the long term, and that's how I plan to play it. To learn more about how I invest in different sectors and different kinds of strategies I use, check out this video here where I go into a lot more detail.